Hey guys, I'm back with another tutorial on Unreal Engine 4. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to make a basic room, how to design it, and how to light it up and generally make it look much better than it originally will. So first of all, let's create a first-person project. I'll change the directory since my C drive is running low on space. Select this folder and let's name it room. Make sure that all of these settings are as is, like desktop, maximum quality, and bit starter content. The starter content includes things that will help you along your way of creating the project. Of course, if you have already some things installed like textures and meshes, then you do not need the starter content. Let's create the project. It will take a while to get created. Now that it's open up, click on File and create a new level since we do not want this, and create a default new level. Now we will have a nice and clean empty level. Select this and hit delete. Okay, now that you have deleted this, we can create a room. There are many ways to create a room, and the simplest way to create a room is to just place a box from geometry and make it hollow. This will make space inside the box to make a room for your player. Another method is the use of static meshes, which are included in content, and go to starter content. In architecture, you can see here that you have a wall that you can place here. The advantage of using BSP over walls, over static meshes, is that all you have to do is create a box, and then the room will automatically get created, and the wall and the floor and the ceiling are automatically created. However, with with static meshes, you have to create in the individual floors as well as the ceiling as well as the walls manually. So after I've created this, I have to duplicate it by pressing Ctrl and W. This will duplicate it. Then I have to move it here to create the second wall, and then Ctrl W, and then rotate it to create the floor, and then Ctrl W to create the ceiling. This is a time-consuming process. Another way is through using splines and blueprint. That approach is actually much more advanced, and I will not be covering it in this tutorial. Since we're only starting out, our best bet is to use BSP brushes. So first of all, create a box and resize it by pressing R on your keyboard. There are three modes which you can shift between. First is by pressing W, where you can move the static mesh or the selected object. Then if you press E, you can go into rotation mode, which will help you in rotating objects. And then there is another mode called scaling, which you can enter by pressing R, which will allow you to scale the selected object in accordance with your desires. Now you can either scale individual X, Y, and Z axis, or you can just hover over this middle box and then just increase its size like this. This will increase the size of the object on all axes to uniformly scale the object. Now let's put it into 0, 0, 0. Just to make the placement of object inside the room much easier. Everything is set to 0. Now we can 2.25. A nice square room. Now the player is inside this box. However, we have not made this hollow, so this is what's going to happen when you hit play. You're just going to start falling down, or you're just going to stay in one place. You're going to stay in one place. However, if you select this and then make it hollow, now you will spawn inside a room. As you can see, it's a room. Now it's really bright because we have not built the lightning yet. Now for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to take this and set it to movable so that we do not have to create lightning again and again. Now, if I hit play, you'll notice this scene gets brighter. The reason why this happens is because auto exposure, for some reason, is set to on by default. So if there's a too dark scene, the engine is going to go automatically, hey, this is too dark. The player won't be able to see anything. So let's make the scene brighter, and it will lead to these scenarios where everything is just way too lighten up. Yeah. So in order to counter this, all you have to do is press on Edit, Project Setting, and go to All Setting and search for Exposure, and disable this auto exposure. And now it will be disabled by default. Now if you hit play, you can see that it's much darker than before and it's not lightening up. However, we want a dark room, and this is not a dark room because there are no lights. It should be completely 100% dark. So in order to make it darker, you have to delete the skylight, as the skylights adds light in places where it appears to be too dark. Now all you have to do is press on this icon and hit this build lightning only. It will take a while to build lightning, especially on larger projects, but since it's fairly small, it will generate out very quickly. So as you can see, now we have a completely dark room. Now let's make it a bit longer, that's what she said, and a bit wider, and now we have a nice looking room. However, there's one problem: it's too dark. So let's light it up. First, Let's add a point light right here and a spotlight as well for a realistic looking light. So if we only added a point light, if we only added a spotlight, this is what the result would be like. This is not realistic at all. So that's why we add a point light to make the scene look a bit more realistic. So let's keep this. And there's something that you can use other than spotlight, and it's this rect light. Basically, rect light short for rectangular light. It's another form of spotlight, but it's, in my opinion, much better than it for emulating a realistic light. All you gotta do is rotate it 90 degrees, and it will do the work for you. Let's move it to the center. 0, 0, 0, and let's move it above. Again, this 0, 0, and we'll keep the Z where it is. It looks good. Now we can texture the wall. If you want to texture the wall, just go to starter content, and in materials you can select a wide range of assets. Materials. Now we can use concrete, or we can use just basic wall, which will look much nicer in my opinion. Basic wall, and this is for tiles alignment. We can, if we press this, select all matching brush, it will select all of its sides, and now we can change the alignment to align surface blender to make this smaller like this. And as for the ceiling, let's just put it like this, and alignment surface blender. And for the floor, I'm going to use this. It looks beautiful like this, so I'm just going to use this. So we have our basic room. Now it feels a bit empty. Although nice, it feels empty, and it's these dark corners that I do not really like. So in order to get rid of these corners, all you really have to do is, and this is something not covered in other tutorials for some reason, use inverse squared. You have to just uncheck this box. It will make the area a lot more brighter. Just set it down to as much as you like. Make it movable before, like, when you're checking, so you do not have to rebuild lightning every time. So increase the attenuation radius and decrease the intensity to, I don't know, say 1. Yeah, look, it's going to light up everything and generally make it look much better. And instead of white, let's give it an orange tint like this. Make sure it's nearer to the whites, because otherwise it will just look not real. And you know, this can stay as it is, because it will just complement the light more. The orange light plus bluish light is actually a really good combination. Now that we have this set up, we can start adding our materials. Let's add this lamp. Move this lower, and move this to 0, 0, 0. Move this a bit above, and now we have, we have to put it a bit lower. Yeah, now it works. Now we have a very nice looking lamp. Now we can add furniture. First of all, let's save this map, room, and hit save. Now we can add a couch. Align this here. Okay, and now we need to add a window. However, how do we add a window when all of this is closed? Well, it's really easy, and another benefit of using BSP brushes. Just go to geometry and select this subtract and add the box. Now what it will do is just subtract any BSP brushes. It will not work on static meshes such as this sofa. It will not work on this. However, it will only work on BSP brushes. BSP brushes are the brushes that are using this geometry tab. Box, cone, cylinder, curved stairs, all of these are BSPs. Now let's make a window. Let's make a window. This looks like a good position. So only one window here. This is done via the BSP subtract tool. Okay, we can make it smaller and just put this here. Put this here. And now we have a window. You can disable snapping by pressing this button and then move it wherever you want. This is useful in areas where positioning is critical. Let's move it a bit back to the middle like this. Okay, this looks nice. Okay, nice. So one thing about subtractive BSP brushes is that they will only work on older BSP brushes that have been created before them. So if I was to say create a new box and place it here right next to the subtractive BSP brush, it will not get removed. This is because this is a newer BSP that we added later on. So if you want to subtract from this BSP as well, what you're going to want to do is select the subtractive BSP box, copy it by hitting Control C, and then paste it by hitting Control V. And now it will subtract the newly placed box like this. So you have to keep this in mind. Okay, now we have a window and we have our lightning set. Now we just need to decorate it a bit. Let's make it a bit. This will help making the scene a bit. You can also use a skylight. Let's see, is there any skylight? No. You can also use a skylight to lighten up the scene like this. And change the light color. Okay. And if you disable this cast shadow, it's going to make sure that the shadows that are cast are light in color. And in my opinion, it gives much realistic lighting if you uncheck cast shadow. If it's too bright, then 0.3, if you set it to 0.3, and this will make the shadows much lighter in color. Okay, so we have the general room set up. Now we need to make a door as well. We need to place a subtractive BSP brush, subtractive box, and move it here. Okay, now we have our way for the door, SM door frame. You can also scale it manually by setting the values here. So you're gonna have to play around with these settings a lot. And we have a nice looking door. Now place this SM door. Okay, it fits perfectly. Now you can change the texture of static meshes from here. These are the current materials that you can edit. Let's open this up. You can open up the static mesh by double clicking here, and you can check many things such as collision. This shows simple collisions. If you check it and there are no boxes, then it means that the object has no collision setup, and you can do it manually by just going through this tab and clicking collision, add collision. Basically, add sphere collision, adds a sphere collision like this. Add a capsule collision, adds a capsule collision like this, or add box collision, that is going to add a box collision that is aligned to the axis of the static mesh. Since it's a door, and this is going to be a perfect collision for this door. Hit apply, and this just created a complex collision. Basically, if you press here collisions and auto convex collision, this tab will open up, and you can create complex collisions that are very accurate to the static mesh. However, I wouldn't really recommend it doing it on a door. So just click on remove collision, add box simplified collision. This is going to add a collision component to all around the door. Hit save to save the static mesh collision, and now we can test out if our door is actually blocking or not. So yep, it's blocking, although it's a bit small. So I'm just going to rescale, and now hit play. Yeah, much better. So I'm going to have to scale the BSP again. So now what we have to do is create a moving door. That's something I think I'll cover in another video. Right now I'm just going to tell you how to texture this door. The material for this door is in this material box, and you can change the material by just dragging it here. Like if I drag it here, it's going to change the material over here. I can change the material to it whatever I want. I can also do the same thing here, and it's going to just make the door non-transparent in case you do not want the player to know what's on the other side. So this is how you change the texture of a static mesh. And you can also place a pillar. There it is. ALT plus end snaps the object to the floor. ALT plus end. And now, sadly, there's no way to snap it to the wall as well. And like this. Okay, so there's nothing here. So, okay, there's this SM bush. You can place it here in the corner to add more detail to the room. So this is basically literally just drag and drop stuff, something even a baby could do. Nothing too hard. SM frame for the window. I just saw it. And one thing you can do is, to make this look better, is change the direction of the sun so that it pours inside. Now the scene looks too bright for me to appreciate the sun pouring inside, so let's set it a bit darker, like this. And no, 0.1 is too little. Wait, I'm just going to change this. to something more orange. Hit OK. Same thing here, orange. Hit OK, and it looks good, much better than before. This, I guess we can lower the intensity. This would make it too dark. This is, I guess, okay. You gotta play around with these settings to know what's best for you. And this works. Now you can add a post-process volume to really like make this place feel like it's alive. Search for post-process volume. Make it larger so it covers the entire area. 000. And now change it like this. Make it go above. And just like this. Okay, now in the post-process volume, we can change how this looks like. So bloom, let's add bloom. Method, intensity, you have to play around with this a lot. The greater the intensity, the more bloom there is, I guess. Let's set it to 1.5. Exposure, we don't want this. Chromatic abbreviation, basically what it does is add this rainbow effect to things. We don't want to do it in excess. A good range or value I found is 0.3. It's not too noticeable, but it's there, you can see it. If you want to increase it, just experiment with it and you'll see what fits for you. Add vintage intensity, like this, to add the dark corners around the screen. Lens flare, basically the round things, these are the lens flare. You can increase the intensity, but the greater you increase it, it's going to also show up in the, what do you call it, in the reflections as well. So just don't increase it too much. And the color grading is used to grade what colors that should be used in the scene. So 15,000 makes the scene much warmer, 1,000 makes the scene much colder or bluer. I usually set it to 5,500. But in this case we want a warm feeling, so we're just going to go with 10,000 global. And in this we can use it to saturate colors much more. Like, as you can see, the colors are getting saturated much more. For now I'm just going to disable white balance, shadows, global, contrast. Again, this is something that you're gonna have to play around with to get what you like. Gamma, how dark the area is or how bright it is. Shadows, saturation. This is to do with the shadows and how harsh they are. So if I set it to 0, you can see anywhere there is shadow, there's going to be no color. And if I set it to 2, anywhere there's shadow, it's just going to multiply the contrast and make it darker as well. So it doesn't look realistic. I'm going to go to 1.1, I guess. So I'm going to leave it on. Usually the shadows is not something I change, but I'm just going to change it for the sake of this tutorial. Midtones, again, something. The main thing that you should change here is global and white balance. Other things are something you can play around with and see what you like. Color grading is used to only display a variety of colors only. This is used to tell this how bright or dark this scene is supposed to be. Enabling like this, it looks better by setting it to 1, but it ends up depending on the scene. Shoulder, again, it's this shoulder effect tells us about where when a light hits the surface, how bright it should be. So if it's 0, then you will not be able to detect the source radius. If I set it to 1, as you can see, just keep checking, looking at here, you can see that that area is brighter because that's where the light hits. And black clip, how dark these areas are. White clip, for how bright areas are, I guess. I'm not really seeing any difference. I'm not sure about this one though. So post-processed material, ambient occlusion, intensity. Again, this is ambient occlusion that adds fake shadow. Ray tracing, this is something I cannot enable because I do not have an RTX GPU. And motion blur, something if you want to enable you can. Reflections, type, you can change the type of reflection to screen space or ray tracing. Screen space reflections. These are the reflections which you can see here. See, as you can see, it makes a difference. So if you want, you can change it here. Path tracing, again, path tracing is something that's related to ray tracing, and I'm not going to cover it. The post-process volume setting tells us about the priority. Now the priority, if you have multiple post-process volumes, then you can set the priority of them to be higher than this one and set this to infinite extent, meaning it will be applied everywhere inside the map, and any post-process volume that has a priority higher than this will get rendered on top of this, meaning this will not be rendered and the higher priority post-process effect will get rendered. If you set this to enable, then you do not need to set the scale. You can set it to as small as you want or as big as you want. It will not make a difference. So for example, if it's not checked, this is what will happen once you're outside the volume. You can see once I move outside it, the floor becomes less saturated, and the walls also become less saturated. To really show this effect, I'm just going to turn on temperature, and now as you can see, once I'm out, that color changes. The color of the wall changes. In, out, in, out. So if you select infinite extend, it's going to get applied whether you're inside the box or not. And you can just then make it small, like super small, and then just forget it ever existed. 111. So that's it for today, I guess. Play. I hope you guys like this video and subscribe for more. Tomorrow I'll be doing a door open and close, how to open and close this door. And generally I'll also be adding a bit more of assets to this project so I can set it up and make this room look like a real room instead of what it looks like right now. This is really empty. So please do like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. Bye.